Welcome, welcome, and thank you so much for being here today. This is a very exciting day for us for this community, really, and we've got a wonderful turnout. We appreciate your being here. First thing I want to do is to introduce my partners in this preparedness thing in Northern California, the chapter executive from the Capital Region chapter, Don Lindblom, and the chapter executive from the Fresno area, the Central Valley chapter, and that's Ellen Knapp. Please join me in welcoming them to the Bay Area. Now, we're really very honored to have such a distinguished crowd here today. We've gathered to discuss a topic of utmost importance. It's the disaster readiness for Northern California. It's so important. We've seen what can happen in communities, and we want to make sure that we are the most prepared community anywhere in the world. It's hard to think about a place like Japan suffering the way that it is currently. Back in 2009, in January 2009, I had the privilege of being a speaker at the Kobe Earthquake Symposium. And the progress that they had made since their Kobe earthquake was stunning. I mean, it was just amazing to see how organized and prepared they were as a community. And with all of their preparedness, no community can withstand the horrific series, really, of disasters that they had to face. First the earthquake, then the tsunami, followed by this the radiation that is attacking their community as we speak. And that's why we're here today, to figure out ways to focus on making the Bay Area and Northern California the absolute most prepared community anywhere. This is a mission that we really started with support from PG&E 5 years ago. In 2006, the centennial of the 1906 earthquake, PG&E was wonderful enough to provide us with the kind of funding to do a program that we called Prepare Bay Area. And it had as its goal to prepare one person in every four, basically one in each household, so that they would know what to do, they'd know how to respond and take care of their loved ones, and then the broader community in the aftermath of a disaster. It was a very successful program. They funded it for 3 years. It took us 4 to do it, but we did it, and we really are very, very proud of that. But what that made clear to us is that this is not a job that's ever done. We have just begun this journey of preparedness, and we know we have so much more to do. What we are hoping to do through our Ready Neighborhoods program is to first focus in on those communities that are considered to be the most vulnerable, those that have a high level of poverty, those that have a lot of people who only speak one language, those who are dealing with some kind of challenges that make them a little bit less able to take care of themselves. And that's where that whole notion of neighbors helping neighbor is going to be so important. So we're going to spend the time to prepare the most vulnerable communities and make the information available for the larger community so that when something happens here, we all are going to be able to take care of ourselves and then reach out and take care of our neighbors. It's going to be so important. The Ready Neighborhood program is a collaboration of many, many partners. There's no way that Red Cross or any organization can do it by itself. We've all got to look to and figure out ways to support one another. We are really fortunate in the Bay Area. We have community leaders like San Francisco CARD, we have NERT, Neighborhood Emergency Response Teams, and we have a variety, Neighborhood Empowerment Network, and of course we have our dear friends at the Department of Emergency Management, represented by Rob Dudgeon here in the front row, and it's so important. It's so important that we know how to work together and figure out ways to do that in peacetime. If something bad happens, it just comes natural and easy to us all. PG&E has pledged $1 million to kick off this campaign in Northern California that includes the Central Valley and Central Coast. We're so thankful for their support. Now, I'd like to invite Chris Johns, he's the president of PG&E, to the microphone to share a little bit more about PG&E's role in supporting disaster readiness in Northern and Central California. Please join me in welcoming Chris Johns.
Thank you, Harold, and thanks everybody for being here today. We are very pleased and proud to be able to play a role in this new program and be supportive of such a great effort to be ready for any kind of natural disaster. I want to thank Mayor Lee and Chief Hayes White here for being an integral part of really driving this collaborative process forward and really looking out for the folks in Northern California. The Red Cross deserves a lot of praise for its commitment to making sure that the citizens in Northern and Central California and throughout, quite frankly, the United States are looking at ways to make sure that they're prepared. Because it's important to not just be able to react to an emergency, but to do what you can to make sure that everybody is ready, that they've got the equipment that'll be needed, that they've got the resources and the knowledge that is required to make sure that they know what to do when a disaster occurs or when an emergency occurs. And I think that this program will go a long ways to really playing an important role to seeing that through. We're thrilled today to be part of that. When we look at the initial investment here, we see it as an opportunity to make a difference immediately in 50 different communities in our service territory, making sure that our customers and our neighbors and our friends have the resources available to be ready to react and to be prepared for any kind of a disaster that would come along. It's really gratifying to play even just a small role in that collaborative effort to move this forward. And the interesting part that really is different about this program is it starts at the grassroots level. It is going out to each of the individual communities and working with the local people in those communities to design a program very specific to their needs. Because one size does not fit all when we're looking at being prepared for a disaster. It's got to be looking at the unique needs of each one of those communities, and that's exactly what this program is going to do. So we do want to thank the Red Cross for their extraordinary leadership in pulling this together and starting this program. And with that, I'd like to be able to present to them a check to help kick the campaign off.
Chris tells me I cannot cash that check. So in addition to the support of PG&E, the Red Cross is also fortunate to be able to work with a multitude of partners. One of those that, in addition to being a partner, is also a member of our board of directors and is also the most fabulous fire chief on the planet. Please join me in saying hello and welcome to Joanne Hayes White. Yay.
Yeah, thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. We're about 3 days away from the 105th anniversary of the 1906 earthquake and fire. So it's very fitting that we gather here today to talk about preparedness. I'm thrilled to be serving as your fire chief. I'm in my 7th year as fire chief, 21 years in the department. Very proud of the community that we serve because everyone is a very vital member of the preparedness piece of the puzzle. And that's what we're here today to talk about. I'm also very proud, as Harold said, to be a member of the board of directors for the American Red Cross Bay Area. Oftentimes I hear about firefighters being called heroes, and that may be true, but I have so much pride when I see, for example, we had 2 third alarm fires last week. We had volunteers from Red Cross there into the middle of the night, both nights, back to back, assisting people who had been burned out of their residences. So it's about that partnership and it's about that collaboration. Think of the heroism that we saw and witnessed in the tragedy resulting from the Japan earthquake. People fighting for survival in their own communities. Seeing that footage of everyday people pitching in and helping out reminds me of just how important it is for everyone to think about preparedness and resiliency in our own communities. I talked about the third alarm fires last week and how Red Cross time after time steps up and is there for the community. I think one of the things is with their Prepare Bay Area initiative that they launched about 5 years ago, this is going to build on it, on the response to neighborhood program. It's an important program. It's one that builds upon preparedness in our communities. There's so many great avenues for people that are concerned about their workplaces, their homes, to take advantage of and to get involved. In the fire department, what we saw after 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake was that we had so many people willing to step up and help, but what they needed was some essential training and education. We're proud in the San Francisco Fire Department to have trained thousands and thousands of people in San Francisco through our neighborhood emergency response team training. This concept of ready neighborhoods by the Red Cross is a nice support to neighborhood emergency response team and fits in very well. We couldn't do all of these programs without support and having public-private partnerships, and I would also like to acknowledge Mr. Chris Johns and Pacific Gas and Electric. Working as the fire chief, we rely heavily on Pacific Gas and Electric as it relates to how we respond to gas and electrical emergencies. We've had a very good working relationship with PG&E. They've been very supportive of our NERT program, and as evidenced by the $1 million donation to support Ready Neighborhoods, once again, they're stepping up to assist us in getting the message out about how important it is to be prepared. The other thing that I'm excited about in relation to PG&E is we all know and we all feel very badly about what happened on September 9th in San Bruno, just down south of San Francisco. And we've worked even more collaboratively with PG&E, and we're excited to announce that the San Francisco community, in addition to Fremont, San Bruno, as well, will be receiving some upgraded technology, not only to help our first responders, but what it's going to do is provide us with GIS mapping so that we will know when we respond to emergencies just where the infrastructure that PG&E has underground is located. And it's just an example again of PG&E partnering with the first responders so that we can be as efficient as possible in times of an emergency. And like I said before, it's all about collaboration, it's all about partnerships. The more prepared that we are today, the better off all of us will be in the event of an emergency, when it happens, and then in the recovery phase, and that's very important. So I'd like to thank all of you for being here today, for your support of the Red Cross, to acknowledge PG&E for their great work, and recognizing the importance of partnering with public safety. The person that I'd now like to introduce is someone that has been a champion for years for readiness and preparedness. I think we started our careers at about the same time in the early 1990s in the city. I've worked with our mayor. He's now my boss, former colleague of mine, and I can call him a friend, and let all of you know that the city is in very capable hands with Mayor Ed Lee. And before coming up, if you don't mind, I'd love to share a personal story. I didn't check with you first, but I've always admired you, respected you, but about 6 months ago, I was with 2 of my 3 boys at Big Five, getting some shoes. I'm always at Big Five Sporting Goods doing something. Who do I run into but then my buddy Ed, now my boss, Mayor Lee. And what was he doing? He was purchasing flashlights and battery-operated radios for himself and his loved ones. You talk about someone that is going to be prepared. Very proud to be working for him, and that's Mayor Ed Lee.
Thank you, everybody. What she didn't tell you was that I was looking for those hats with the light in front so I can find my golf balls. But anyway, thank you all for being here. This month began with a very serious event in Japan, and we all know that. And the lesson that we learn is how can we make sure we're more ready. a lot of you are here. I know you personally. You've seen me, and you've seen me, and David Chu, and the fire chief, and others during a fire or after a fire in Chinatown, certainly, and in Castro, on Castro Street, and other fires that have occurred. And you've seen us show that we really care. We care about the victims. We care about what happens. And then we're always thinking about how we can be better prepared. And that's why we entrust so much and thank so much to the American Red Cross. Harold, you have a wonderful organization, and I am so thankful you are so strong in the Bay Area. Thank you very much, Harold, for having such a wonderful organization working with us. The American Red Cross is there. They're there in the midnight. They're there early hours in the morning with Ben Ames, our human services agency person, helping to look for housing and making sure. And then we're in Chinatown. We're with so many community agencies, whether it's CCDC or the youth or people in the chamber and others in the community. The community always wants to be better prepared, and they've wanted to be involved for so many years. And that is why I'm also thankful to PG&E and to the American Red Cross for unveiling today the Ready Neighborhoods program, because this money, thanks to PG&E, to begin this, is targeting the most vulnerable neighborhoods. We have one right next door in Chinatown. People who have been immigrated here, they don't carry the immediate language, but they are just as valuable citizens to everybody here in the whole city, and they live in very vulnerable buildings and vulnerable neighborhoods. And I thank God we have a great fire chief and a great fire department and a great DEM, because I've been working with them all hours of the day and night. We use these disasters as drills for ourselves and ask ourselves, what is it that we've forgotten? What can we do better? And we know that the biggest gap is that our population changes dramatically every 5 years in the city. We have a whole host of new people that come in to occupy our buildings, to become residents, and they don't have what we did 5 years ago. In fact, some of them don't know what we just trained ourselves a year ago. They don't have it. They don't have a culturally competent way, and they're not ready. And so reminding ourselves every year, every few months, go through those drills and make sure we're accessing 72hour.org, making sure we got the culturally competent sirens going in every neighborhood, that we have brochures, that we have our radio systems. I just left Ann Cronenberg, our newest director of DEM, in my office working on an interoperability system with Mayor Reed and Mayor Kwan and 9 other of the Bay Area cities, so that we can talk with each other and have an ability to interoperate on a new 700 megahertz system that the federal government is helping to fund. And they're still meeting in our office as I came down here to do this event, because I know that ultimately it's the strength of our neighborhoods that are going to be key to our recovery. As a city administrator in the past, I spent a lot of time with the Neighborhood Empowerment Network, trying to reach out to every single neighborhood and making sure we are better prepared, working with merchants, neighborhood leaders, as well as our DEM, as well as our fire department, and all the other life-saving departments of the city, to make sure we had strong neighborhoods, to build capacity and trust at the neighborhood level. And that's what I've been representing as a mayor. I want our neighborhoods to be strong. I want the capacity to be there, the culturally competent capacity to be there. And so Ready Neighborhoods is a natural thing for me to support. And I really thank all the agencies of this city working together, coming together with this great American Red Cross that we have, and leading the effort to make sure our neighborhoods are strong, because that's where it's going to be. This survival and this recovery of every disaster, expected and unexpected, will be ones that are solidly in our neighborhoods as our city's infrastructure gets together. And in all those fires and all those events where we're saving lives or improving lives and helping victims of various situations, I want to also stress that we have very good corporate partners. And not only is PG&E doing this today, time and time again. By the way, Chris, I can use about 306 of those checks to help with the budget as well. So let me know if you got any to spare. But we also have PG&E as part of something that no other city has done across this country, and it's to form the first Lifelines Council in this city history, to have all of our utilities, our own PUC, our own water department, our own electrical, our PG&E, our ports, all of our infrastructure departments working together, sharing information that ordinarily they would not have shared had we not called for this council. Because how can PG&E staff get over from the East Bay over here to restore our power without us paying attention to transportation? And how can transportation work without us knowing how that information will be shared with our police and fire to clear the roads? I mean, all of this is integrated. And so we had to have a Lifelines Council working together so that all the integration, the things that, the silos that work against us as we work in our own bureaucracies have to be broken down in order for us to improve our delivery of emergency services. And so that Lifeline Council has been part of what we're doing. The fire department is part of that. And that's how we started getting better information shared by everybody. And so those gas lines maps that the fire chief has alluded to before are essential for us to know what's underground so that we can better prepare and do better planning. But again, it comes back to neighborhoods. It comes back to our promise. It's a long time promise that we would make sure all of our neighborhoods are safe. And so it should be no surprise that we have strong neighborhood leaders, whether it's the Chinatown Neighborhood Improvement, or the Chinatown Community Development Center, the Chinese Community Health Corps, Healthcare Association, the NECOS, which happens to be the Chinatown Health Coalition that involves NERT and ham radio operators, of course the Chinese Chamber. And working with all of them and working with us has been somebody that I've valued very much because we've been out to the same fires, David, and we've been there on a daily basis when we are working with fire victims in Chinatown, and we've had these hours where we're saying to ourselves, how can we do better? How can we be better prepared throughout the whole city? And now that he's board president and I'm mayor, those discussions are happening on a very policy level, and I want to welcome here again and a good friend, one I'm working very closely with, is leadership of this Board of Supervisors, our board president, David Chu. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Lee. And of course, because our fire chief started with a story about Mayor Lee, let me continue with the second story about Mayor Lee. We had, about 6 months into my first term, a major fire in the heart of Chinatown. And it was late on a Friday night. I had just gotten a call while I was at a dinner, actually, for the Chinatown Community Development Center about how we had residents in Chinatown who did not have shelter, who did not have the supplies that they needed. These were low-income, monolingual, mostly seniors. And I started calling folks around the city, and it was Friday night at around 11 o'clock, and I couldn't reach a darn person. So I called our city administrator, then Ed Lee, and Ed met me in my district in Chinatown. And the funny thing about this story, he had one of those hats on with one of those little lights. And he and I toured the fire site at very late on Friday night, and to me, it was one of the reasons why, when we were debating at the Board of Supervisors who should be our interim mayor, that I had so much faith in this man. So can we give him a hand, please? Now, my apologies for being late. It seems like today is Disaster Preparedness Day. I actually just left a press conference that also started at 11 o'clock at City Hall, where we recognized 2 school children who saved lives by calling 911. In addition to this press conference, at 1 o'clock, our city department heads, including the mayor, we will all be meeting at our regular disaster council to talk about how we remain prepared. In about 20 hours in North Beach tomorrow, there will be neighborhood associations and merchant groups from the northeast part of the city, led by Jerry Crowley sitting in the back. Thank you, Jerry. Who will be coming together. Yeah, please give Jerry Crowley a hand here. Jerry has been leading an effort in the northeast part of our city to bring neighborhood associations together, because what we have found is the best way to be prepared for a disaster is to start preparing today. The best way for us to know that we're going to survive the next earthquake, the next fire, the next tsunami is for residents and merchants to talk together about what problems can we solve in our neighborhoods after these earthquakes, after these fires, and before. So I want to thank you for all that work. And of course, I want to thank the American Red Cross for all the work that they have been doing. In my time in office, I have been part of the aftermath of 6 major residential fires, and this is just in District 3. And every single time after those fires, the Red Cross has been there. Your volunteers, your staff, your management team, and your donors have made sure that San Francisco can rebuild. And this is the type of spirit that we are talking about today. Now, I am so pleased that the American Red Cross, with the support of PG&E, is launching this Ready Neighborhood project to work with 50 neighborhoods across San Francisco. I'm particularly pleased because of the work I know they're going to do in my district. And by the way, welcome to District 3 here in Union Square. The district that you happen to be sitting in right now represents the oldest and the most historic neighborhoods here in San Francisco. We are an old neighborhood, and we're a neighborhood with a lot of buildings that are fragile, that need, frankly, some seismic upgrades. We are in an area that is extremely dense, the densest neighborhoods outside of Manhattan. And so our ability to be safe depends so much on preparedness and depends so much on the generosity of the American Red Cross and your programs. And I want to let you know, Harold, and I also want to let our friends from PG&E know, obviously your efforts are not unnoticed. As a community, all of us need to come together on a regular basis to ensure that we will not only continue to be the best city in the United States, but the safest city in the United States. Thank you so much for being here.
David, thanks so much for those wonderful words. And he's right. We have been very, very busy in his district, and he makes sure that we do it right. And it's such a pleasure to have leadership like we've got in the mayor and the president of our board of supervisors who get this thing and support us in so very many ways. I was kind of looking for Victor because he's always out there helping us with disasters. It's such a cool team you've got. We're almost at the end. I want to deviate a little bit and ask if the folks who are part of the board of directors, and that includes Geisha Williams, who's also from PG&E, Jolinda Sim, Barry Hutton, and let's see, who are there other board members here? Kind of do one of these for me. You too, Jolinda. Yeah, thank you. All right. So. And next, I would love it if the volunteers, the folks who are, that David talked about, are out there in the middle of the night, working with Ben Ames and Rob Dudgeon and others to see to it that this community is cared for in their hour of need. People like Brother Al Malamo there. If you would wave your hand, volunteers, say thanks to them. Wonderful. We're almost done, but we have a fantastic neighbor on the other side of the bay in Oakland. We have a new mayor over there, Jean Kwan, who was not able to make it, but she asked Sue Piper to come and provide a few words of greeting. So join me in welcoming Sue Piper. Hey.
Well, good morning, almost good afternoon. You know, earthquakes and fires and disasters don't know city boundaries. And so really what this effort is about is making sure that Northern California is the most prepared. And I'm here to represent Mayor Kwan and the City of Oakland in supporting you in your efforts. We too are very concerned. You know, we have the Hayward Fault that goes right through our community. And the Hayward Fault has a major earthquake every 140 years, and we're 2 years overdue. So the clock is ticking. Our city has worked very hard, just as San Francisco has, to organize its neighborhoods and to be prepared. are what we call CORES, Communities of Oakland Respond to Emergencies, was founded in 1989 and actually was the model for NERT. We've trained about 20,000 people all over the city in English and Chinese and Spanish and Vietnamese. We have a similar effort to San Francisco's in terms of working with the institutions in our community so that we're not only prepared for the disaster but also for disaster recovery. We have a program that we're about to make public in a couple of weeks that we have organized with vulnerable communities, mainly the handicapped and the seniors, so that when they need a place to shelter, we're prepared. We have worked this out in advance. But the reality is that all of this doesn't work unless our neighbors are prepared block by block. And I come not only as a representative of Mayor Kwan, but as a survivor of the 1991 firestorm. And I can tell you that the cavalry does not come to save you. It's neighbors saving neighbors. Just think about those images from Japan of people pulling people up the hill with the lapping tsunami right at their feet. And that's why it's so important for us to be prepared. So there are a couple things that I think people need to remember. First, make a plan. And what I usually say to people is, when a disaster occurs somewhere else, take the time to think about what you would do in that disaster, because that's a plan. You don't, in the middle of a disaster, you do not think with your brain, you think with your gut. And that's the wrong time to be making a plan. So make a plan. Pack a kit. The 72hours.org website is fabulous. The Red Cross information is fabulous. It's out there. You just need to put it together. And you can get prepared, and some of the easy things to do, thank God we have technology these days. Your cell phone, which you carry with you probably at all times, is really very helpful. You can plug in the names of your medications, all the contact people you need to have. You have it with you at all times. Make it a part of your everyday life, because then you will be prepared. So it really isn't a matter of if we're going to have a disaster, it's a matter of when. And you know, as I said, the clock is ticking, and we just really need to help each other. So I congratulate PG&E, who has been very, very helpful, and San Francisco in their work, and want you to know that Oakland is right with you on it. Thank you.
And with that, a final thought. Every year we measure preparedness level in the Bay Area. And yesterday we received the latest survey results. It showed that 20% of our residents reported that they had taken those 3 steps that Sue just eloquently talked about in preparedness: making a plan, building a kit, and making sure that you're informed and get some training. This percentage is slightly lower than the 22% that we had at the end of our Prepare Bay Area campaign, so we're slipping. However, the real call to action highlighted by the survey is that we need to make sure that we are preparing the most vulnerable. That's where we need your help and support, and seeing to it that we target in and help those who will need the greatest amount of help at the time of great need. Now, across all the demographics in all neighborhoods, one belief held true, and that's the belief that in neighbors helping neighbors after a disaster, we win. We've seen that time and time again, and Sue talked about it, how in the Japanese earthquake, it was the neighbors there as the first responders. The cavalry comes, but they come later, and they see to it that they're taking care of those who may be in worse shape than we might be. So do everything you can to be prepared. All of our speakers have been wonderful and will now be available for one-on-one interviews with members of the press. We are having a prep rally that's going to start, prep rally. So not a pep rally, but a prep rally after this, where we're going to be training and teaching folks how to be prepared, and we hope you can stick around for that and just kick it. So ladies and gentlemen, thanks so very, very much for being here, and let the prep rally begin.